Hi, it's Karen at RT Systems. We're going to talk today about the Radioddity DB50 mobile radio. Someone had had a lot of trouble programming this radio, and from setting up to do this video, I can see why. This radio was a little challenging for me, and I'm familiar with radios. I can't imagine what someone brand new to it would have gotten into. But let's see if I can show you some of the gotchas that I experienced and get you started so you can get the basics done and get some good use out of this radio. You're looking at the radio, and like I said, I have been working with it. I have 9 memory channels in it. And from the face of the radio, let me show you one of the main things. If I push this knob, well, my frequency changed and my right hand display disappeared. Push the knob again and it didn't come back. Well, what do I do now? Turn the radio off, turn it back on. It's the same way. I've lost half my radio. Oh, there's the other half of the radio. Well, this is really odd. I'm pushing the top buttons now. Change main back and forth. And it's a short press on that top knob. But I've only got half the radio. If I push this button, now it's all back. What happened? These bottom buttons, a press on those activates hypermemory 1 and hypermemory 2. Hypermemories on these radios, there have been a lot that have had these. They're called hypermemories because they're not memory channels. They're a configuration. They're still going to be using your same memory channels. The best way to show you is in the programmer. The programmer opens to my memory channels page. And like I said, I have 9 channels programmed in here. But what we were talking about was hypermemories. Down here at the bottom of the screen, hypermemory 1 and hypermemory 2. What we have on these screens, we have VFO frequencies. VFO frequencies are really not important when it comes to programming the radio from the programmer. VFO is an important part of your radio. That's how you tune to a frequency if you don't have it programmed in memory. But as far as going from the programmer to the radio, there's no one button recall for these. So as long as it's a valid frequency for the band, it can be any frequency for the band. We can see here that the left side of the radio does 136, 220, 350, and 400 bands, where the right side of this radio only does 2 meters and 440. That's going to make a difference when you give it a big long memory list, and some of them don't show up on the right-hand side depending on the band they're in. But let's look more at what we ran into when we pushed that bottom button. We pushed the button on the left and the frequency changed. And you can see it changed to 145.6. Mode, VFO on the left and right. I was sitting there in memory mode, and when I pushed the button, it changed to VFO. This can be very useful. I can set it to be on memory, and I can set it to be on a particular channel. And with one button press, I go immediately to memory channel number 517 if that's where the frequency is that I want to talk on. But the radio right this minute is set up on VFO on both sides. And so it changed frequency to what you see here. And losing half the radio. Sub display is off. That's why I only saw one frequency, because all I was seeing was Maine. And as I changed Maine back and forth from the left to the right, I saw one frequency on the left or the right. Hypermemory 2, when I pushed this button, the frequency changed again because I went to memory channel number 5. The right stayed on VFO, and my sub-display was on frequency. This can be frequency or my DC, or I can turn it off as we found on the other one. And that's why it acted differently depending on the one of those two that I pressed, and why frequencies changed unexpectedly, raising questions about the performance of the radio. What we at RT Systems recommend is that you put everybody on memory. So if you push one of those buttons, you may change channels, but you're at least still in memory, which in everyday use of the radio may be a little more familiar to you, and then you just have to get back to the memory channel that you were on. So keep that in mind, and you might want to leave the sub-display set on frequency so you don't lose half your radio. Let's look at a few other things on this radio. All radios have settings and radio menu settings. This gives you a power on message. It makes your display mode be frequency or channel or name. Be careful with channel. You'll lose some functionality. The radio acts more like a commercial radio. May not even be able to get to VFO. Might be a great thing if you're handing the radio to somebody who's not trained and you need them to stay in one place. Which hypermemory is active, colors, scan modes, other options that the radio uses, whether it's in VFO or it's in memory, and regardless of which hypermemory it's on. Most interesting are these key assignments. These are the keys on your microphone, and you can change them so you've got one-touch access to a function that you need much more often. Common 2 is an emergency function. DTMF is a signaling function, 2-tone and 5-tone. Lots of little details for this radio. Apply changes and close. When you have it all set up, communications and send data to radio, and the radio will be programmed reflecting what you have set in the file. So a little more about this radio. I hope it helped. This is Karen, and remember, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. 73s.